Generic pills are often slightly different from their brand name brothers, and the I team found patients and doctors complaining of medical complications.
Why is the FDA keeping the chemistry of generics secret? The I team's Chris Glorioso is here with his investigation.
Top generics are cheaper than brand names, and generally they are just as effective. But small differences in chemistry can have big negative impacts. Case in point, a depression patient who spoke only to News 4. We've obscured her identity.
It's not me, it's the medication.
For Robin, the difference between a brand name pill and the generic was day and night. She took the antidepressant Wellbutrin XL, and it controlled her depression. But she says when her insurance company forced her to switch to a generic version, it was obvious something was different.
What it felt like was I was getting, first thing in the morning, all this medication dumped into my bloodstream. It was a roller coaster ride, and it just didn't feel right.
It turns out the pills were not equivalent. An FDA study showed a generic version marketed by the pharma company Teva released the antidepressant chemicals at a far different rate. And after hundreds of patient complaints, regulators asked Teva to pull the pill off the market. The episode revealed something few consumers know.
I think a lot of people are surprised to hear that generic drugs really aren't identical to the brand name medication.
Dr. Todd Cooperman runs ConsumerLab.com, a website that publishes test results on health products and supplements. He says generic drugs are typically approved as long as their active ingredient is absorbed at a rate between 80 and 125% of the brand name pill. The exact absorption rate is known as bioequivalence. But the FDA does not regularly make that chemical information public.
If that information, that bioequivalence data was available, which I believe it always should have been, at least your doctor will have a clue as to the differences between these medications.
In a series of emails, an FDA spokeswoman said bioequivalence test results are not routinely shared because releasing the data could compromise a generic drug company's confidential information. Now, New York State Assemblymember Amy Paulin is trying to bypass the FDA. She just introduced a bill that would force generic drug firms to publicize test results or be barred from the New York State drug market.
It would require the generic company to give that same chemical makeup that they have to give to the FDA to us, the state, for us to put on a website to be available. And you know what? It'll help the whole country.
I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, that this information should have been out there for always. It shouldn't be considered confidential information.
Since Teva's version of Wellbutrin was pulled, regulators have announced a review of some other generics, including several epilepsy and blood pressure medications. The FDA would not specify exactly how many generics are under review, saying the agency continues its active monitoring of all generic drugs, and we take any reports about generic inequivalence seriously.
It scares me for the well-being of the American public. They have no idea what they're putting into their bodies.
We reached out to Teva, the marketer of that Wellbutrin generic, and the company that manufactured the pill, Impax. Neither firm addressed our questions, but if Assemblymember Paulin's bill passes, pharma firms will have to share study results whenever they put a generic on the market. Sheila.